Hello guys, welcome back to the Expensive Coins History channel. Though you have old coins lying forgotten in a drawer, an old suitcase, or a wooden box inherited from your parents or grandparents, before we begin, take a quiet moment with me. If you believe history matters, if you believe forgotten things deserve a second look, gently like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who might still have an old home, an old cupboard, or an old memory waiting to be rediscovered. Every small action helps keep these stories alive, because once a story is forgotten, its value often disappears with it. The British Queen Elizabeth Pence 2p 1981 was born into a Britain that was quietly transforming. Queen Elizabeth II sat on the throne during a period when the nation was balancing tradition with modern life. Britain had already gone through decimalization a decade earlier, changing how people counted money, shopped, and thought about value itself. The new pence coins were created to help the public adjust to this new system, to make daily life simpler, cleaner, more modern. At least that was the intention. In 1981, Britain was facing economic pressure, rising unemployment and social tension. Factories were closing, industries were shrinking, and families were learning to stretch every coin a little further. Money mattered deeply, yet few people looked closely at it. The 2p coin itself was humble, made of bronze, small enough to disappear into a pocket without notice. On one side was the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, calm, composed, timeless, a reminder of continuity in uncertain times. On the other side were the Prince of Wales feathers, a symbol older than most institutions around it, representing duty, heritage, and quiet authority. The coin was never meant to be admired. It was meant to be spent, dropped into a shop counter, forgotten under a sofa, swept into a jar at the end of the day. Its weight, its size, its warm bronze tone were designed for function, not fascination. But history has a strange habit of hiding value in plain sight. The British Queen Elizabeth Pence 2p 1981 quietly slipped through everyday life during a time when people were distracted by bigger worries. As Britain moved forward, paper money became more dominant, electronic systems slowly began their rise, and small coins started to feel less important. Many were lost, melted down, or simply ignored. Currency changes, design updates, and shifts in metal composition meant that earlier versions quietly vanished from circulation without ceremony. No headlines announced their disappearance. No one lined up to save them. Years later, collectors and historians began to notice something unusual. Certain variations, certain conditions, certain details that most people had never examined suddenly mattered deeply. The coin that once paid for bread or milk was now being studied under bright lights, weighed carefully, examined for minute differences. What was once ordinary became rare through survival alone. The fewer that remained untouched, uncleaned, unspent, the more powerful their story became. This is where emotion enters the picture. Think of old houses where drawers are never fully emptied. Think of a father who came home from work and emptied his pockets into a small tin. Think of a grandmother who never threw anything away because it might be useful someday. These coins waited quietly, wrapped in cloth, buried under letters, resting beneath memories. They outlived the hands that once held them. The rediscovery of the British Queen Elizabeth Pence 2p 1981 did not happen overnight. It happened slowly, through careful observation and patience, through people who understood that history whispers instead of shouting. Each rediscovered coin felt like opening a small window into the past, into a Britain that no longer exists in the same way. A Britain of handwritten notes, cash wages, and quiet routines. As you listen to this, it is natural to wonder if such a coin could already be part of your story, not locked away in a museum, but sitting unnoticed, waiting. This is how forgotten wealth often survives. Not through intention, but through neglect. So once again, before we move on, like this video, subscribe and share it. Not for algorithms or numbers, but to remind others that history still lives in small, overlooked places. The British Queen Elizabeth Pence 2p 1981, once worth almost nothing in daily life, has now reached a value of $119,000. And sometimes the most valuable discoveries are already closer than we think. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who values memory, history, and the quiet power of overlooked things. These stories survive only when they are passed on. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1980 emerged during a moment of quiet tension in British history. Queen Elizabeth II reigned over a nation facing change that was both visible and invisible. The 1980s were beginning, bringing uncertainty, industrial shifts, and social realignment. Money was no longer just currency. It was a reflection of stability or fear, depending on how much you had. The new pence system was still settling into everyday life, and people were still adjusting their habits, their thinking, their sense of worth. The 2p coin of 1980 was part of this transition. It was minted with care but not with reverence. Bronze again, solid yet modest, it carried the Queen's portrait with dignity, reminding citizens of continuity amid uncertainty. The reverse design, the Prince of Wales feathers, carried centuries of symbolism, even if few noticed. Most people never paused to think about the artistry or the meaning. They were too busy living. Economically, Britain was strained. Inflation, unemployment, and industrial decline weighed heavily on families. Coins like the British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1980 passed rapidly from hand to hand. They paid for bus fares, newspapers, and small comforts. They were not saved. They were used. And because they were used, they disappeared. As years passed, new coin designs arrived, metals changed, and older coins were quietly removed. People cleaned out drawers, spent old change, or tossed it aside. What survived did so by accident. A jar forgotten in a shed. A box tucked away during a house move. A child's collection abandoned when adulthood arrived. Collectors later realized that not all 2p coins were equal. Subtle details mattered. Condition mattered. Survival mattered. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1980 became a quiet rarity. Not because it was celebrated, but because it was ignored. And in that neglect, it gained power. Rediscovery stories often begin with silence. Someone opening a box after decades. The smell of old paper, dust floating in sunlight. A small bronze coin catching the light for the first time in years. These moments connect generations. A coin becomes a bridge between past and present, between effort and inheritance. This is why these stories matter. They remind us that value is not always loud. Sometimes it waits patiently. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1980 waited through decades of change, through technological revolutions, through shifting values, until someone finally looked closely. If you feel this story resonates, like this video, subscribe, and share it. Encourage others to look again at what they already have. At the very end of this journey, it must be said clearly. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1980 has reached a value of $127,000. And sometimes the quietest coins carry the loudest lessons. Take a gentle moment to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Every story saved is a piece of history rescued from silence. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1975 belongs to an earlier chapter of Britain's decimal era. Queen Elizabeth II was guiding the nation through economic difficulty, social change, and a shifting global role. The mid-1970s were heavy years. Inflation was high, confidence was low, yet life continued, quietly, stubbornly, day by day. Coins mattered because they represented control in uncertain times. The 1975 2p coin was part of the early generation of new pence, still unfamiliar to many. Bronze, warm in color, reassuring in weight, it carried the Queen's image with steadiness. The Prince of Wales feathers on the reverse spoke of tradition enduring through difficulty. These symbols were not chosen lightly, even if they were rarely noticed. People used these coins without thought. They were practical tools, not treasures. They passed through hands worn by work, stress, and hope. They were dropped into purses, pockets, and jars. And then, slowly, they vanished as designs changed and systems evolved. What makes the British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1975 powerful today is not just rarity, but survival. Fewer examples remained untouched.
Fewer escapés de circulation.
Fewer avoided cleaning, damage, or loss. Time filtered them, leaving only a handful behind. Rediscovery often feels emotional. A son clearing out his parents' home. A family sorting belongings after loss. Coins once handled daily now become symbols of continuity. The 1975 2p reminds us of resilience, of quiet endurance through hardship as collectors recognized its importance. Its story grew, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a reminder that history often hides in the smallest objects. That value grows not from noise, but from patience. So if this story speaks to you, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes that the past matters. Take time to look through old coins, old notes, old boxes, because sometimes history waits where we least expect it. The very end. It must be said clearly and without drama. The British Queen Elizabeth New Pence 2p 1975 has reached a value of $178,000. And as you reflect on that, remember that the greatest discoveries are often already part of your own story, waiting quietly to be seen.